Welcome back to Up to Speed, the StarCraft story so far. Heart of the Swarm Special Edition. We've covered a lot so far. The first three acts of the game, about to head into Act 4. Lauren, Elise, standing by for your questions in chat. They've had some couple good ones so far. We're going to cruise right through this, though, Kevin. Tell us about how much of a bro Valerian Mansk is in the beginning of Act 4.
Oh, without a doubt, definitely bro. And every time you mention that, I just think it's hilarious. But anyway, Valerian Mansk, big guy, right? No, he's a small guy with the brains of even better than Arcturus Mansk, his father. And it's at this point, right after he's spoken with Kerrigan and he's talked with Mira Han and Matt Horner, and now he's talking to Kerrigan again, he realizes his father's beyond redemption. The actions cannot be redeemed. He now knows that Kerrigan needs to do what she needs to do, and this goes back to what we were talking about before. Valerian Manx, respectable leader, very strategic, analytical. He understands again that Kerrigan needs to do certain things just to A, get him out of her system, but B, maybe it would be better for the course of history or for his people for certain things to happen, perhaps like Manx dying, Arcturus Manx, that is. So this is a very interesting conundrum that we've got going on here because Kerrigan basically comes on the transmission and tells Valerian, look, I'm going to go raid Korhal, and lots of people are going to die. And Valerian asks her very, very nicely. I mean, they're not at each other's throats. Again, Valerian understands this needs to be done. He says, can we keep the casualties to a minimum? And Kerrigan says, almost word for word, I'm trying to do one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, and you're trying to make it harder for me. And he just stands there, and the two of them kind of lock eyes, and that's it. And she says, okay, I'll do what I can, basically. Which is interesting. And again, it goes to show this new Kerrigan that we've got going on. She thinks things through. So this brings us to the mission where we're essentially storming the gates of Korhal. And Jim, knowing that Kerrigan allowed this to happen, gave Valerian some time to get out while also trying to keep the casualties to a minimum, again, sees that there's still compassion. Kerrigan is still somewhat human. And because of this, Jim decides that he's going to help out storming the gates of Korhal, because who better to help Kerrigan gain redemption on Mengsk than Jim Raynor himself?
It's very true, and it's a nice gesture that Jim does. Seeing that correspondence between Valerian and Sarah was a test for Sarah, for Jim. And highlighting what you said, that moment where Matt Horner and Valerian both look at Jim Raynor after that standoff, if you will, where Sarah relents and says, yes, I'll take a different route to save all the casualties. That's what Jim needed. He needed that piece of Sarah to still be alive in there. And when he saw that, he knew she was different than the Queen of Blades. And he goes in the defense of Korhal, goes in to help Sarah Kerrigan take down Arcturus Manx, tells her, listen, we're in this together. We both have a stake in this. We're both a part of this. And she is relieved. She's very joyful. She can't be overjoyed. She has a battle to win. But the sense of gratefulness in her voice of, he's still there. He's still by my side. Even though it's really complicated right now that I'm a Zerg, he's still in my court. And that, to me, is very, very important. They both focus on the battle. The best of the best, the Terran Dominion, come to defend the Emperor. Dahaka comes into play to save the entire attack because his Primal Zerg are completely immune to the Psi emitters and the Psi disruptors. And Stukov helps as well. Zagar helps. Yep. All of the Swarm armies and allies, along with Raiders, are there to defeat Mengsk. And this mission, to me, was a sense of the last cry of a tyrant and how Arcturus was crying out in the same boisterous, powerful, on his throne mentality of come save your emperor, stand for humanity. And he would not relent, he would not grovel, he would not repent of his ways. He wanted to be the emperor and die as the emperor. But he had another trick up his sleeve as well, waiting for the fight. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in this next cinematic we're going to play, this is the final cinematic of Heart of the Swarm. There are a number of different features of any cinematic I would love for you to pay attention to. But one big thing I would like you to think about is that in a cinematic for video games, almost in any film really, but especially for a pre-rendered cinematic that for the intro cinematic took the cinematic team at Blizzard a year and a half to complete, every second counts in this cinematic. There is a point that there's a couple points that I'll highlight after we play it, but please keep that in mind because it makes it all the much more powerful. But let's take a look right now at the end of a Tyrant.
Hello, Kerrigan. I've been waiting for you.
I'm surprised you haven't tried to escape.
Escape? My dear, I'm afraid you've got it all wrong. Really? Did you think I'd keep an animal like you close to me without some kind of insurance policy? Clearly, you are my greatest failure. Now, at long last, you will die. Change of plans.
You can never suffer enough for all the lives you've ruined, Arcturus.
Made you into a monster, Kerrigan.
You made us all into monsters. Thank you, Jim. For everything.
My pleasure, darling. Always was.
I now see my true enemy. He waits for me in the void, wielding powers I cannot imagine. I go to face him, having renounced everything. My humanity, my identity, the man I love. But I will not face this enemy alone. I am the swarm.
Phenomenal ending to this game. Now, one of the 3 points I wanted to really highlight here is the moment Jim Raynor takes out his pistol and he's ready to kill Minx right there. The same pistol he was going to use with that one bullet he had that he had to use on his friend Tychus when Tychus betrayed him in the end of Wings of Liberty. He could have taken the shot. Instead, he stopped. He merely glanced at Kerrigan. He knew she wanted to be the one that did it. The second point, Arcturus Mengsk never relented. He never gave Kerrigan that sense of victory. As we see the moment right there, Jim knows that Kerrigan wants to do the deed. And Arcturus Mengsk at this moment, she says, it's beautiful, but he says to her, I made you into a monster, Kerrigan. He would not give her the victory whatsoever. It was him that did it. He wanted to be the one responsible, even for his own demise. And the third point I'll highlight at the end of the show, tying in to the art of video games and the aesthetic power. We'll get into that later. Kevin, I want to hear your thoughts overall of your experience with this cinematic and the game itself. Then we'll hear Lauren's thoughts. Then we'll say a proper goodbye to Mr. James Harper before we take a commercial break. The time's yours right now, my friend.
Honestly, I thought Heart of the Swarm was exactly what it needed to be. It tied up some loose ends, got us ready for Legacy of the Void, which we'll touch on. I thought that the storyline was awesome. Again, how many nerd chill moments did I say I had? 4, 5, 17? Who knows? There was Stukov coming back. That was awesome. Duran, Naru dying. Again, that loose end right there. Amon, we now know who he is. Lots of cool stuff. I believe completely that Heart of the Swarm was exactly what it needed to be. And I think I'll leave it at that.
All right. Lauren, since you've taken the journey with us, what are your thoughts?
I think it's a really good thing that Jim isn't the one that killed her, even though he could have been like the man and done that for her. Mm-hmm. I think it's really good that he let Kerrigan kind of take that off of her chest, since that's the whole reason for her going against their love, going back to the Zerg. You know, she needed to do that as closure. So I'm glad that happened. I would have liked to have seen Jim and Kerrigan standing there smoking the victory cigar. I feel
would have been
like
well worth it.
That, like, if they just would have been standing there and then just like, you know, Jim just lift the cigar like into screenshot, I think that would be an epic moment. I would just like to see that just for my own pleasure. And then when Kerrigan like goes to fly off, I feel like through all these cinematics, he lets her go. Like they always have this strong connection, and then he always has to just watch and just let her go. And I think that's not a human reaction. Like just standing there like smiling like as she goes like, good girl.
Well,
like I don't think that's human.
He understands, because they both have fought together and have lost so much in order to fight the good fight. And when he sees the compassion that she has to save the civilians, she's not out to destroy the Dominion. She's not out to kill him. She's out to destroy Mengsk. And once she does it, he knows that there's something else there.
Yeah.
Because she went through so much. And also, Valerian could have told them some things about what's happening. And it's not over yet. It's not over yet.
It's the
I know.
ideal human reaction. It's probable, not possible.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't even know how much of her is still left human.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
but what he says is such a perfect thing to say for Jim. He says, "My pleasure, darling, always was." And you can tell he has. You can tell he has tears in his eyes too when he's letting her go.
Yeah, they all have tears. Yeah. You can tell that they all still.
Well,
have
and her eyes are glossy too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I really want to get into that point a little bit later because it means so much to me, that moment. Now, this is a proper ending, thank goodness, because there's so many endings that are so bad in video games nowadays, but this is not a conclusion. However, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of Arcturus Mengsk. I don't think he's going to be infected or come back. I don't think there's anything left of him after what Kerrigan did to him. But we had a very, very nice chat with the man that brought Arcturus Mengsk to life, and his name is James Harper. Let's go ahead to that interview. This is Clutch, and I'm standing next to the Emperor himself, Arcturus Mengsk, or the actor, as the world knows him, as Mr. James Harper.
I've been waiting for you.
You have been involved with StarCraft since the beginning, as Arcturus Mengsk.
One of my favorite stories is when I auditioned for it and I got cast in it, and I had to come down here to Irvine to record, okay? Now, you look around and you see Blizzard, and I don't know, how many acres is this campus? Back then in 97, they had a couple of offices in an industrial park. There wasn't any air conditioning in the building. None in the building in August, on the second floor, directly below the sunlight, baking down on the roof. And I was there for about 4 to 5 hours doing the recording, and I was soaked. I mean, you could take my shirt out and wring it out. I didn't know anything about video games or anything else, but it was great fun to do.
My dear, I'm afraid you've got it all wrong.
Your character, Arcturus, is one of the slyest, conniving, cunningest emperors that's ever existed. Like, he is 16 steps ahead of everybody else in the game. But you make him come alive. In your voice, there's this power. Where does that power come from?
A lot of it right now has to do with, let me listen to what I first did back. Because I wanted to be kind of similar, So they did send me some, and I'm going, wow, there's a video game character out in the terrestrial whatever out there in different planetary blah blah, and he speaks like he's from Georgia.
Really? Did you think I'd keep an animal like you close to me without some kind of insurance policy?
Part of it might have been based on what I had done in my audition, because I knew nothing about the game originally way back in 97. And the rest of the stuff is just somebody who's kind of the power of it all. So you want to have the voice, and he's also incredibly confident in his power. He doesn't have to threaten people because he is a threat.
Now, at long last,
Until he loses it.
you will die.
Then he gets a little uptight and a little angry, and the voice raises and so on and so forth.
Well, you bring so much honesty and power to your character. What would you like to say to your fans and to everyone that's so excited to play Heart of the Swarm?
Be prepared. That's all.
Thank you, sir, for your time. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure to talk to Mr. James Harper, and he really did bring Arcturus Mengsk alive. Maybe we can see some sort of flashback or video that he'll have for his son, so we can see more of his talents, in Legacy of the Void. We'll just have to see. But we wish him a fond farewell in the world of StarCraft. He was one of the greatest villains and enemies to have in the world of science fiction. When we come back, we talk about questions answered and questions asked. Don't go anywhere.
Greetings, fellow Terrans. I'm James Harper, voice of Emperor Arcturus Mengsk, and you are watching The Pulse.